A year ago, I set out on a mission to send an AirTag to North Korea. During this experiment, I stumbled across what felt like fraudulent activity by DHL, and what was initially intended on being an interesting tech experiment coincidentally evolved into an investigation. Since then, my videos have amassed over 20 million views across social media, and a bunch of you thought DHL would sue the crap out of me. Even I wasn't ruling out the possibility and got myself legal protection insurance. But it turns out that wasn't necessary, because instead of suing, DHL reached out to me directly. Not only did they answer almost every question I threw at them, they even invited me for a private 4-hour tour of their sorting facility in Frankfurt Airport, which is where my parcels were processed. I went to that facility in search of answers, and boy did I get them. I learned about the process of shipping parcels to North Korea. I discovered how DHL missent 2 of my parcels to South Korea. Heck, DHL even let me experience working in the facility myself. Quite the interesting turn of events. Now, does this mean DHL's finally off the hook? Not quite. In fact, there were parts of this tour that were so shocking to me that I was forced to look beyond DHL, and now I'm investigating the entire postal industry. And of course, with a little help from my favorite device. Now, I sent a total of 3 AirTags to North Korea, each at different intervals. So let's start off with a quick update on what happened to each of those parcels. To keep things simple, we're going to refer to them as AirTag 1, AirTag 2, and AirTag 3. AirTag 1 was shipped from Düsseldorf on the 7th of May and arrived in Frankfurt the next day. 46 days later, it was processed and flown to China Post in Beijing, which is where it's still sitting today, 560 days later. What blows my mind is that the battery in the AirTag is still working. As for AirTags 2 and 3, they were both missent by DHL to South Korea. I was able to prove this in my last video when AirTag 2 had been returned to me labeled missent to South Korea. AirTag 3, however, hadn't yet been returned to me, but I finally have it back in my possession, and here it is. It came back labeled insufficient address. Makes sense given there's no Pyongyang in South Korea. Now let's move on to the juicy stuff. Around December of last year is when a bunch of things all started happening suspiciously at the same time. DHL finally acknowledged the disruption of service to North Korea and updated their shipping status accordingly. North Korea's borders had already been closed for 2 years at that point, but better late than never, I guess. Then DHL started following me on Twitter, but said nothing to me. So I was obviously like, okay. Not long later, an interesting email arrived in my inbox. It was from DHL's escalations team and appeared to be in response to my videos. Thank you for your inquiry regarding your above shipment. We have investigated the matter thoroughly and would like to answer your questions. Postal parcels to North Korea are handed over to China Post for transit, which is the reason you are able to locate parcels in Beijing. This is common practice in case of destinations with low shipment volumes. I mean, I already knew that, but okay. In addition, there are hardly any direct flights available to Pyongyang. Now, I assume they meant no direct flights from China because I'm fairly certain there's no direct flights going from Germany to North Korea. Or is there? Due to this, investigation times may be longer than usual for such destinations. DHL Express does not provide forwarding to North Korea, which would explain the response you have received from our DHL Express colleagues there. Please accept our apologies that some of your parcels were wrongly sent to South Korea. This was clearly a mistake in handling. We have determined that it is currently not possible to provide adequate transport of parcels to North Korea via China, and saw no alternative than to suspend forwarding to North Korea. We would like to apologize for the inconvenience of this matter again, and thank you for bringing these issues to our attention. Now, DHL may not have directly referenced my videos in their email, but at this point it was obvious they had seen them. So I asked if they'd be willing to address some questions related to my experience. And to my surprise, they said yes. And it was at this point I realized, holy crap, I've just established an open dialogue with one of the largest companies in Germany. Instead of suing the smug-faced YouTuber that was ripping on their brand, they decided to have a friendly conversation. Respect. But as great as it was to see DHL make the right first step here, I couldn't go soft. I knew I owed it to you guys, and myself, to ask some difficult questions. And that's precisely what I did. Question number 1. How long has your service to North Korea been disrupted for, and why did it take so long for an official update to your website? We are generally dependent on information from our foreign partners regarding the reliability of our agreed traffic routes and any disruptions that might occur. In this instance, China Post had to suspend its forwarding to North Korea due to a lack of air freight capacities. This is a global challenge at present during the COVID-19 pandemic. Due to very low shipment volumes to North Korea, our own quality measures were unable to pick up the disruption. We immediately took action and updated our website after the situation became apparent in the course of this matter. Can you give any indication as to how 2 of my parcels were missent to South Korea, and what steps are being taken to ensure these mistakes don't happen again? In both cases, the shipments were misdirected within our own service. We apologize for these mistakes and are re-evaluating our procedures to avoid such errors in the future. I mean, nice that they apologize, but I was more interested in learning exactly how it happened in the first place. Not to worry, we'll find out soon enough. How many parcels are lost on a daily basis? Handling 49 million letters and 5.9 million parcels each day, we depend on our procedures to run smoothly and with an absolute minimum of errors. Nevertheless, mistakes can happen in our complex logistics network. We critically assess any errors on a regular basis and introduce optimizations where necessary. However, we have to ask for your understanding that neither we nor our contractors disclose such internal information. That's what I thought. Now, this next statement from DHL was in response to claims I made in my previous video about potential fraud. So let me quickly explain. When you've shipped a parcel with DHL and its status hasn't updated for 5 days, you can request they investigate your parcel. I had to do this on 2 separate occasions for AirTag 1, and in both instances, DHL told me that 1, they had carried out an intensive investigation, and 2, my parcels were lost. The first time I received this response, I declined DHL's refund and kindly asked that they look a little harder. And the very next day, my parcel magically reappeared and was processed for shipping to Beijing. Coincidence? Maybe. But when that same parcel then got stuck in Beijing and DHL sent me the same carbon copy "We've lost your parcel" letter, something didn't feel right. And when I'd called DHL's customer service team, they were able to locate my parcel immediately. And that's what got me thinking, is DHL just handing out refunds for problematic parcels because they've calculated it's cheaper than having an employee actually investigate, all the while making misleading claims that they had in fact investigated? If so, well yeah, I thought that may just constitute fraud. So I asked DHL if their investigations are in any way automated and if I was lied to for the sake of cost efficiency. And this was their response. Generally, an investigation is handled as follows. Upon receiving a claim, our customer service will evaluate the tracking data and any pertinent information about the shipment and either advise the customer right away or launch further inquiries. If the last scan places the shipment in our domestic network, we will contact the respective operations site. If the last scan was taken abroad, we reach out to our partners in that country. Investigations are conducted with the same level of effort, regardless of the value of individual shipments. And of course, we do not lie about the results. Regrettably, we were unable to reconstruct every contact and information given to you in this case. We regret very much that you have been given such contradicting information. Your frustration is entirely understandable and we can only apologize for this. It is likely that our customer service employees made statements based on limited information available to them at the time. Sorry, but I'm still not convinced that DHL does as thorough a job as they're letting on here. And if you need any further proof as to why I feel that way, check this out. After DHL missent AirTag 2 to South Korea, naturally I opened up an inquiry. DHL's response? We have great news for you. Your parcel was successfully delivered to North Korea. Yeah, that really happened. DHL missent my parcel to South Korea, then claimed it had been successfully delivered to North Korea. How? Like, seriously? How? Well, I asked DHL that too, and here's what they had to say. We found out that the employee handling your inquiry at the time made a mistake in analyzing the tracking status. We can only apologize for this. Look, I understand that people make mistakes, but come on. If we look at the track and trace information provided to me, you can clearly see that the destination country is North Korea and the arrival country is South Korea. It's not that hard. If I were to speculate, I'd say that this team is either understaffed or they're expected to fulfill too many investigations in one day, resulting in careless mistakes such as this. Which leads me to my next question. Is there a dedicated parcel investigations team, and are these employees given daily quotas or targets? If so, how many parcels must an employee investigate daily? Yes, there is a dedicated service department responsible for international parcels. We ask for your understanding that we, like other service providers, do not disclose internal practices, including target quotas or statistics regarding claims or investigations. Are there auditing procedures for lost parcels? If so, are those audits conducted internally or by a third party? Yes, these audits are conducted by the International Postal Corporation. Now, I did a little digging into the International Postal Corporation, and it turns out they're an organization whose members are some of the largest postal services in the world. You've got the likes of Australia Post, Canada Post, DHL, Royal Mail, and even the United States Postal Service. But what's interesting is that these postal services, or members, are also the shareholders of the organization. So essentially, DHL's lost parcels are audited by an organization they part own. Now, I'll be honest, I wasn't entirely impressed with all of those answers, but DHL did finish with this. We would like to take this opportunity to again apologize for the inconvenience of the situation and express our gratitude for your advice. In addition, we would like to invite you to our International Parcel Center in Frankfurt to show you our international operations in person. Oh yes. So now I'm thinking, holy crap, not only have I got DHL talking with me, but now they're inviting me over to their house. It felt like a Tinder match gone right. So like any good Tinder date, I asked if I could bring a camera and a friend to film the experience. And they said yes. This was a great sign from DHL. They clearly had something to prove, and I liked that. We arrived at the International Post Center, which they call the IPZ, at 3 AM on a Tuesday morning. After going through security and picking up our visitor's badge, we were greeted by DHL's team, who escorted us to what they called the Sky Lounge. It's essentially a large conference room for external guests, located on the top floor. They began with some quick introductions and a short presentation about the IPZ facility. Then we had a really interesting discussion about the process and challenges of shipping parcels to North Korea. So mail exchange between North Korea and Germany is regulated by the Universal Postal Union, or UPU. You can think of the UPU as a network of nations that have agreed to send mail between one another under an agreed set of rules and regulations. So here's how a parcel typically gets from Germany to North Korea. Once DHL receives the parcel, they bring it to the IPZ for processing. If processed correctly, the parcel gets loaded onto a plane and is sent off to Beijing for transit. From there, China Post will process the parcel and forward it via air freight to North Korea. Once the parcel has made it safely to North Korea, the North Korean Postal Service will make the final delivery on behalf of DHL. Now, for all of that to run smoothly, everyone involved has to agree on a payment system so that each contributing service is paid accordingly. Additionally, they need to agree on things like how to handle damaged packages, incorrect addresses, returns, and agree on tracking number formats, etc., etc. And the UPU's role is to simplify and standardize all of those processes so that everyone involved is on the same page. And yes, North Korea is a member of the UPU. In fact, there are very few countries which are not. But despite these efforts for standardization, one challenge DHL does face when sending parcels to North Korea is that the North Korean Postal Service don't scan parcels on arrival, making it almost impossible for DHL to know if a parcel's arrived safely in the country or not. Interesting little insight. Now, since I was getting the employee experience, I was taken through a quick safety protocol and given a pair of safety shoes. And once I had those bad boys on, we were ready to rock and roll. As soon as we got inside the work area, we were taken to what's called the loading and unloading station. During the export shift, this is where trucks arrive and offload all the letters and small parcels. Letters are taken to one sorting module and parcels go to another. Any packages which are oddly shaped are set aside and sorted manually, as they either won't fit on the conveyor trays or worse, risk falling off. From here, the parcels make their way up to the sorting module, which is where we headed next. Now this here is what they refer to as the injection point for the sorting module. All the parcels which have come up from the ground floor come here to get dumped onto this conveyor, where they will eventually get sorted by destination country. And as you can see, there are a lot of parcels. Too many, in fact. This employee had to wait for the conveyor to start moving again before he could dump more parcels. What's the holdup? Well, the sorting stations where these parcels get sorted were busy playing catch up. And that's where we were headed next. Now, this was the part of the tour that was the most eye-opening for me. So every single one of those parcels we saw at the injection point eventually arrives at what they call a coding station. And there are a total of 20 of these stations at the IPZ. These manned coding stations are where each parcel gets sorted by destination country manually. So here's how it works. A sorter locates the address on a parcel to determine the destination country. Let's say the parcel is destined for Spain. The employee then enters a 2-digit sorting code for Spain, places the parcel onto the conveyor, and hits enter. The parcel then zips onto what they call a tilt tray, and with the help of that 2-digit sorting code, the tilt tray knows exactly which chute to take the parcel to. Once it gets there, it will drop the parcel down the chute and into a container destined for Spain. Now that may sound straightforward, but this job is no easy task. In order for the sorters to work as fast and efficiently as possible, they need to memorize the codes for each of these countries by heart. And to make this process even more complicated, addresses on the parcels often come written in different languages. So a parcel for, say, Austria could come written in English as Austria, or German as Österreich, or in French as l'Autriche. So they need to memorize those too. And while speed is an important part of the job, there's also zero room for error. Let's say a sorter picks up a parcel that's destined for Austria, but misreads it as Australia. Well, once they've entered the code for Australia and hit enter, there's no undoing that mistake. A parcel which was meant to travel 500 kilometers by land is now traveling 16,000 kilometers by air in the wrong direction. There's no control Z, that parcel is gone. And it was at this point I realized how two of my parcels were missent to South Korea. But just to be sure, I had to ask. Let's say there was like a mistake, like if someone accidentally read Australia instead of Austria, and then they put the wrong number, then by then it's going to the wrong country.
Yeah,
right.
Then it's gone.
Okay, wow,
yeah.
okay.
Yeah.
So would this have been the point where my parcels were missing? Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
I mean, holy crap, where do I begin? How is this process not automated? Is it just me, or am I the only one that assumed this process had been automated decades ago? Like, I would be just as shocked as I am now if I found this out in 2010. Yet here we are in 2022, and this crap is still done manually? It makes no sense. Look, humans cannot and should not be trusted with boring, monotonous tasks like this. The potential for error is far too high. My situation is a prime example. Only one of the 3 parcels I sent to North Korea were sorted correctly. And I'm convinced this wasn't some sort of freak accident. Check this out. I did a quick search in my comments for Austria and Australia, and sure enough, I found complaints from people whose parcels were addressed to Austria, but were sent to Australia. And there's other cases too, like this gentleman's parcel that was destined for Slovenia ending up in Slovakia, and one for the United Arab Emirates ending up in the United States of America. And this one is probably the funniest example of them all. A friend of mine that lives in South Korea was sent some Christmas cookies from his mother in Germany. Unfortunately, he never got them in time for Christmas because DHL tried sending his gift to North Korea. Now, besides the extreme inconvenience this is for consumers, this is also terrible for the environment. Keep in mind that if a parcel gets misrouted to Australia, it then has to go all the way back to its intended destination. And if that destination was Austria, well, from a carbon footprint perspective, that's a 32,000 kilometer journey wasted, all because of a simple mistake made in a matter of seconds. You can't blame the workers for these mistakes either, because it doesn't matter how good you are at this type of work, mistakes will happen. And to experience the difficulty firsthand, I was up next on the sorting machine. The job is as terrifying as it looks. Speed is crucial and accuracy is critical. One small slip up and I'm directly responsible for sending someone's package to the wrong country. And if I'm too slow, I'm contributing to delays at the injection point. At peak performance, I'm sorting about 6 parcels per minute. This talented lady, on the other hand, can do around 30 to 36 parcels per minute, which is around 1,800 parcels an hour. Respect. If these employees have some form of efficiency rating, I was ruining this poor lady's score big time. After a grueling 5-minute shift, I was left with one question on my mind. Why? Why hasn't DHL upgraded to an automated system? So of course I asked, and I got a very candid response. I was told that they had calculated it would simply not be worth the investment. As we made our way to the next station, I was surprised to see that quite a few parcels had fallen off the tilt trays above us and were just sitting in these safety nets. I asked the team how often the nets are cleared, and they assured me it was at least once or twice daily. It just goes to show you how many things can go wrong when getting your parcel from A to B. Now, if your parcel hasn't fallen off its tilt tray, it will eventually arrive at its designated chute and will drop down into either a large pallet box or one of these large blue bags. The pallet boxes are for countries with larger mail volumes, which are delivered via ground transport. The blue bags, however, are typically assigned to countries that require air transport, such as North Korea. And here's how those bags are processed. Once a bag has filled up, the worker locks the chute, brings the bag to this computer, tells the computer which bag he's processing, prints the bag's itinerary, places it inside the bag, grabs a zip tie with a label attached to it, scans the label, closes the bag, and off the bag goes onto another conveyor belt. For high volume destinations, such as the USA, these bags fill up quickly. But for countries with very low shipment volumes, such as North Korea, it can take quite a while before a bag is full enough to send. Sometimes weeks. And it turns out that's why AirTag 1, the only parcel correctly routed to North Korea, was stuck at the IPZ for so bloody long. 46 days to be exact. Contrary to DHL's investigations team, my parcel was never lost. It was simply sitting in its assigned bag waiting to be filled up, which is hilarious. And if you're wondering why they wait so long for a bag to fill up before sending it off, well, there's a good reason for it. Sending a bag with only a few parcels inside increases the likelihood of the bag getting damaged or lost. And of course, they'd rather a bag arrive arrive late, then not at all. However, there are some cases where if a bag is taking too long to fill up, they have no choice but to send it off as is. They actually showed me an example of this later in the tour. This bag here had just arrived from Ukraine. Luckily, it appeared to have arrived unscathed. So once the bag has been placed on the conveyor, it eventually arrives here. The bag gets scanned, attached to this claw, and heads directly to the X-ray station to be checked for dangerous goods. Once the bags have cleared X-ray checks, they head directly to the ACF, which stands for Airmail Center Frankfurt. The ACF is a separate business from DHL Sorting Center. However, the two facilities are conveniently right next to each other and are connected with conveyor belts moving in both directions for import and export. We arrived just as the export shift had ended. However, the process is rather straightforward. The bags from the IPZ arrive on a very large tilt tray and are dropped down a designated chute. From there, an employee will load the bags onto what's called a unit load device, or ULD. ULDs come in many shapes and sizes, and that's to accommodate a large variety of aircraft. Once a ULD is loaded up, it's taken outside where it is weighed on a giant scale and given a boarding pass. The ULD will wait here until it's time to board its aircraft and fly to its destination. So that was DHL's tour in a nutshell. And holy crap, where do I begin? Now, I won't lie, I left Frankfurt feeling very confused. On one hand, I walked away with a ton more respect for DHL. The fact that they reached out to me, invited us to the IPZ, and allowed us to film absolutely everything was extremely commendable of them. And DHL's team at the IPZ were absolutely incredible. They were about as friendly and candid as someone in my position could ask for. They answered difficult questions without hesitation, and they weren't afraid to admit where their services fell short. I wasn't expecting that. But on the other hand, I left thinking, what in God's name were DHL trying to prove here? Were they just trying to show me how complex their operations are, or were they legitimately trying to come clean? Because nothing about this tour settled the issues raised in my previous videos. For example, DHL confirming that the AirTag 1 parcel was indeed never lost, which don't get me wrong, I appreciate the honesty, but that doesn't look good for their investigations team. And then they openly demonstrated the system responsible for sending 2 of my parcels to the completely wrong country. I mean, they literally gift wrapped that one and handed it to me on a silver platter. Like, here you go, this is how we managed to send 2 of your parcels to the wrong country. We're still sorting parcels manually. Like, why were they so comfortable with showing me that? So as I'm processing these thoughts, I start wondering, what if this isn't just a DHL problem? What if, God forbid, manual sorting is still an industry norm? And it was at this moment I realized I may have just stumbled across the postal industry's dirty little secret. Consider this. In 2021, global parcel volumes reached 159 billion. That's 445 million parcels sent each and every day. And if just 1% of those parcels encountered a sorting error, there could be literally millions of parcels going to the wrong destination each and every day. And the additional carbon footprint resulting from those mistakes must be significant. And that's coming from an industry which is A, very profitable, and B, constantly trying to boast its innovation and sustainable technology. So I dug deeper. To find out if other postal services were sorting manually, I decided to use the technology which led me down this path in the first place. AirTags. I figured if there were any postal services still offering a service to North Korea, perhaps I could repeat this experiment and maybe, just maybe, catch them making the same mistake as DHL. But as luck would have it, I didn't have to, because it turns out I wasn't the only YouTuber to send an AirTag to North Korea. 2 YouTubers going by the names of AirTag Alex and the Traveling AirTags did the exact same experiment from 2 different countries with 2 different postal services. Perfect. AirTag Alex is based in the Netherlands and sent his AirTag via PostNL. The Traveling AirTags is based in the UK and sent theirs via Royal Mail. Both used a registered mail service with tracking, and both addressed their parcels to an embassy in Pyongyang. This couldn't have been a more perfect comparison. What happened to the parcels? You won't believe it, both parcels were missent to South Korea. Oh my God. And like me, they too received their parcels back labeled insufficient address. And this reaction from AirTag Alex really speaks volumes.
A sorting error is not very likely because my envelope had a barcode on it, and I'm sure they used the barcode for automatic sorting.
No. What's crazy is we now know of 5 parcels that were sent to North Korea and only one was processed correctly. That's stupid. But as telling as this was, I wanted something more concrete. So I scoured YouTube looking for any videos of PostNL and Royal Mail sorting centers. And sure enough, I found what I was looking for. This here is Royal Mail's Heathrow Worldwide Distribution Center. In this video, Royal Mail describes their sorting system. Take a listen.
So the items would go into the machine and would be put in front of an operator. Our operators would then look at the address on the item. They would speak the address into the machine. The machine would then recognize where that item is going, and then it would automatically sort it to the right destination.
There you have it. Unless they upgraded recently, Royal Mail is also sorting small international parcels manually. Only instead of using a keyboard for data entry, they use voice recognition. Honestly, I don't know if that's better or worse than DHL's approach. Next up is PostNL's facility in The Hague. Now, their sorting center actually appears to be somewhat modern, but what's interesting is they appear to sort parcels both automatically and manually, which is better, but I don't understand why they would use a keyboard for manual entries. I mean, surely there's a better approach, right? Barcode scanners. My suspicions were correct. The postal industry has a weird fetish for old technology. From the outside, they've been distracting us with innovation propaganda, biofuels, electric vehicles, drones, electric planes, drone plane hybrids, and ridiculous self-driving thingamajiggies that don't make any bloody sense. But on the inside, they're still figuring out how to use barcodes. It's fascinating. I knew my job wasn't over yet. To better grasp the seriousness of the problem, I needed data. Specifically, I needed to find out the accepted rate of error for manual sorting systems. Was it 1% of parcels, 2% of parcels, or was I completely underestimating the accuracy of manual work? As transparent as DHL had been with me, that is where they drew the line. They wouldn't share that data with me. But the number had to exist somewhere, and I planned on finding it. So I tried my luck by reaching out to Royal Mail and PostNL. I gave them a quick summary of my experience with DHL, shared the videos from AirTag Alex and the traveling AirTags, and threw a bunch of questions at them. Like, why are they still offering a service to North Korea, and how many parcels do their systems missort each and every year? To my surprise, a spokesperson from both companies got back to me very quickly, both indicating that they were investigating the issues raised. As a week had passed with no word from either of them, something really interesting happened. PostNL had suspended their service to North Korea. Haha. Then literally a few hours later, I received PostNL's response. Here's what they had to say. Regarding the service to North Korea, they claimed that their systems had not detected any signals indicating an error or disruption of service. Additionally, they confirmed that like DHL, they too use China Post for forwarding mail to North Korea. Now, this next part was hilarious. Recently, China Post has confirmed they have no service to North Korea anymore, and we have therefore also closed our offering to North Korea. I mean, they could have at least thanked me for bringing it to their attention. As for the sorting systems, PostNL explained that international parcels are sorted either manually or automatically, depending on the volume of parcels for each destination. Destinations with low volumes, such as North Korea, are typically sorted manually, while higher volume destinations are sorted automatically. I don't know why you wouldn't just go fully automatic, but I assume this is some sort of cost efficiency decision. As to my request for missort data, they said, in both the automatic and manual sorting process, missorts can occur. We cannot, however, provide you with any specific numbers on this. Cannot or will not. Now, as for Royal Mail, their response was, well, short. Here's what their spokesperson had to say. On background, I can say that we're not aware of any problems affecting the sending of items from the UK to North Korea via Royal Mail. Is that so? In terms of your wider set of questions, we would not comment about our operations in such detail for security reasons. Security reasons? What? Interesting. Literally, my first question for them was, can you confirm that the sorting machine in this video is still the current system being used? Like, how on earth is that question a security threat? I did, however, get them to confirm that they too use China Post for forwarding parcels to North Korea. But thanks to DHL and PostNL, who actually did their homework, we know that specific forwarding service is suspended. So yeah. Awkward. Seems Royal Mail didn't look very thoroughly into the matter at all. And once again, my request for data on sorting accuracy was denied. I was running out of options and considered giving up on my search. That was until I stumbled across an event taking place in Frankfurt, Germany, the Parcel and Post Expo. It's the largest postal exhibition in the world, and it was taking place in 2 weeks' time. Companies from across the globe come to the show to show off their latest and greatest tech. But what got me most excited was that the Universal Postal Union would be attending too. If there was anywhere where I could find some answers, it was going to be at this exhibition. The only problem was I no longer live in Germany, so what would normally be a 1-hour train journey for me was now a very expensive 14-hour flight. Thanks, Russia. It was a risky investment. If I walked away empty-handed, it would be a huge waste of money. But then it occurred to me that I had unfinished business with Royal Mail. In claiming that the service to North Korea was still operational, they were essentially begging me to put that claim to the test. And god damn it, who am I to shy away from a postal challenge? So I thought, it, I'm off to Europe, baby. So I applied for a press pass to the Parcel and Post Expo, only to be declined a few days later.
How dare you?
So I applied again and sent the event organizers an email being like, yo, please reconsider. I have a YouTube channel. But they took one look at my channel and were like, thanks, but no thanks. This event is closed to the public with a very strict focus on business. But this wasn't stated anywhere on their website. And when I applied for a free guest pass, I received my ticket immediately. Closed to the public, my ass. My only concern now was, would they allow a guest to bring camera equipment into the event? I decided to take the risk. So I booked my tickets, packed my bags, flew 14 hours to London, said hi to DHL, hopped on a bus, popped into an Apple store, and got myself a pack of AirTags. On the way to my hotel, I jumped on Royal Mail's website, ordered 2 registered letters and 1 small parcel, each addressed to the German embassy in North Korea. I checked into my hotel, activated the AirTags, packed them up, and dropped them off at the local post office. And here's what happened with those AirTags. The AirTags all made it to Royal Mail's international hub as expected. And to my surprise, all of the parcels were sorted correctly and sent to China. Only this time, they didn't go to Beijing, but Shanghai. Interesting. The AirTags went from one sorting facility to another, and for a moment I thought that maybe, just maybe, my AirTags were actually going to North Korea. But on the 31st of October, I stopped getting updates. The last pings located 2 of the parcels on a highway in Shanghai, and 1 still at a facility. Then I received an update from the track and trace data from China Post, which said, import terminated. Was I surprised? Nope. But I am very curious to find out what happened to those AirTags because they've just fallen off the face of the earth. So there you have it. DHL can finally breathe a sigh of relief. They are no longer the worst. With that done and dusted, I left London, flew to Frankfurt, and checked into my hotel. And that night, something crazy happened. I received not 1, but 2 press passes to the Post and Parcel Expo. Ironically, this must have been an automation error from the event organizers. However, I chose to believe that they had a change of heart and realized the importance of my attendance. My luck didn't stop there either. That same night, I was doing some last-minute research in preparation for the event, and I stumbled across an article stating the rate of error for manual sorting machines. And this article was written by a company called SMBC, a manufacturer of automated sorting machines. They're a credible source. And in the article, they state the rate of error for manual sorting systems to be 8%. This discovery was huge. 8% is a terrible number. And the best part, SMBC were attending the expo. I couldn't wait to talk to them. Arriving at the expo the next day, I collected my press pass and checked out the various types of technology on display. I saw a lot of electric last mile delivery vehicles, autonomous robots, and a ton of different automated sorting systems. Like, if there was a theme for the technology at this expo, it was automation. I won't lie, it was weird to be getting so excited about postal technology. Now, the majority of these sorting systems claim to be 99.99% accurate, which means a rate of error of 0.01%. So on average, only 1 in every 10,000 parcels will run into a sorting error. That's not bad. Automated sorters utilize 2 key technologies: high-speed barcode scanning, which is self-explanatory, and optical character recognition, or OCR for short. OCR is the process of converting an image with text into a machine-readable text format. Once the text is digitized, a computer can identify the address and sort the parcel accordingly. So after checking out the tech, I got straight to work. I stopped by SMBC's booth to talk with them about their article. However, they currently don't offer their sorting systems in Europe and were only at the expo to showcase their parcel locker technology. Unfortunate. The next exhibitor I spoke with was a company called Huizim from China. They were showing off a really impressive automated sorter, which they told me was 99.99% accurate. When I asked if they knew what the average rate of error was for manual sorting systems, the gentleman I spoke with claimed it to be 10%. Honestly, I didn't expect it to go above 8%. That's insane. If the rate of error for manual sorters was just 1%, this automatic sorter would be 100 times more accurate. 10% makes it 1,000 times more accurate. That is why this technology is absolutely vital. But not all the manufacturers believe the rate of error to be so high. When I spoke with the blokes at Falcon Autotech, a leading manufacturer of automation systems based in India, they believe the rate of error to be around 3 to 5%. Slightly more optimistic, but honestly, still a harrowing number. Next up was a manufacturer from the United States by the name of Bluecrest. They too were showcasing an excellent sorting system. The representative I spoke with at Bluecrest wouldn't give me a specific number on the rate of error, however, he did say that they knew it was definitely higher than 1%. Now, those were the only 3 exhibitors willing to give me actual numbers. The other exhibitors either claimed they didn't know or said the number varies. But one thing that virtually all the manufacturers agreed with me on was that automated sorters are significantly better for the environment. Which begs the question, why has the industry been so quiet about this? Before coming to this expo, I spent days researching the issue. I watched hours upon hours worth of videos where experts and leaders in the postal industry talked about how they're reducing their impact on the climate. I watched panel debates, webinars, you name it, and not once in any of the videos was the importance of automated sorting machines highlighted. And if anyone could give an answer as to why, it was the Universal Postal Union. Now, my initial plan for this event was, on day 1, talk with the exhibitors off camera, gather as much information as possible, then use that information to prepare for recorded interviews on day 2. But like all great plans, nothing went to plan. None of the exhibitors seemed very keen on doing interviews. The UPU, however, did agree to doing an interview with me on day 2, but come day 2, my wireless microphone decides to stop working. So I explained the situation to the UPU the next day, and they agreed to doing a remote interview with me via Zoom at a later date. Since then, I've been exchanging emails with 2 contacts from the UPU. However, after providing them with a list of topics I wish to cover in the interview, both of them have started ignoring my emails. That interview was to be the most important part of this video. I've tried to give them the benefit of the doubt, I have waited, I've sent follow-up emails, but nothing. Go figure. Another organization I reached out to was the International Postal Corporation. The IPC's members represent 80% of global mail volumes. They would definitely have the answers we're looking for. However, they too have ignored my request for an interview. What does this mean? Well, it means I spent 3,000 euros on a trip to Europe for the numbers 3, 5, 8, and 10. And gosh dang it, I'm not gonna waste those numbers. Since the IPC and UPU weren't willing to help, I decided to create a parcel sorting simulation so that we can compare those numbers against some real-world data. This way, at the very least, we can speculate as to how many parcels might be getting misrouted on a daily basis. Now, full disclosure, I'm not an expert in probability simulations. However, I was able to learn more about the subject thanks to the sponsor of this video, Brilliant. Brilliant is the best way to learn math, science, and computer science interactively. Thanks to Brilliant, not only was I able to freshen up my knowledge on basic probability, but I was able to take it a step further and learn about probability simulations. What I love most about these courses is that they're interactive. This meant I could modify an experiment with actual simulations as I was learning. I then took that knowledge and created my own web-based simulation for this video. And there's a ton of other interesting topics to learn about. I recently just started the course on search engines, and it's pretty darn interesting. The best part, you can try Brilliant today for free by visiting brilliant.org/megalag. And if you enjoy the app as much as I do, the first 200 of you to sign up for the premium annual subscription will receive 20% off. Again, visit brilliant.org/megalag. Thanks Brilliant for sponsoring this video. So let me show you how my simulator works. Here we can enter how many parcels we wish to sort, and here we can enter the rate of error for our sorting machine. If we set this to 1% and hit run, we can see how many errors we've encountered. But if I hit run again, the number will change, and that's because the probability is random, as it would be in real life. Sometimes the missort rate is above 1% and sometimes it's below. But if we increase the number of parcels to 1 million, the results become more representative to the actual rate of error. So let's run the simulation based on the volumes for Royal Mail in 2021. According to Statista, Royal Mail's volumes for 2021 were 1.735 billion parcels, which equates to 4.75 million parcels per day. But to be fair to Royal Mail, we also have to consider that they don't sort all their parcels manually. So we need to know how automated Royal Mail's network is. That data is not easy to come by. However, thanks to an article written by the IPC, we know that in 2021, Royal Mail was only at 33% automation. So I've added an automation variable to my simulation. And how that works is, once we've set the automation level to 33%, that means each time a parcel is sorted, my virtual sorter has a 33% chance of changing its rate of error to that of an automated sorter, which is typically 0.01%. With that added, we can now test out the different rates of error and see what numbers we get back. At 1%, we've encountered 32,000 missorts per day. At 3%, 95,000 parcels per day. At 5%, 160,000 parcels per day. At 8%, 255,000 parcels, and at 10%, 318,000 parcels. Now in reality, a typical parcel will actually go through multiple rounds of sorting, which means these figures could actually be rather conservative. International parcels can go through up to 3 to 4 rounds of sorting, and each round introduces the possibility of errors. However, these numbers are still purely speculation as we don't know the true rate of error for raw mail sorting systems. Nonetheless, I believe this highlights the importance of automation for the sector. So where does that leave us? Well, I may not have exposed the issue in its entirety, but I believe I've made the right first steps. In my opinion, it's obvious this is something the postal industry isn't comfortable talking about. That needs to change. The postal industry tries to paint itself as a key player in the fight against climate change, but I'm not buying it. Innovation in the postal sector has been sluggish to say the least. Why is that? Well, I believe that can be attributed to a severe lack of competition in the sector. The postal market is an oligopoly. Let's face it, when it comes to choosing who delivers our online purchases or who ships our mail, we're not exactly spoiled for choice, are we? And it's no secret that markets with low levels of competition lack innovation. So how can we solve the problem? Well, first, we need to admit there's a problem in the first place. And organizations such as the UPU and IPC could help by advocating for more transparency in the accuracy of postal services. If companies like DHL and Royal Mail are required to disclose how many parcels they misroute, lose, or damage, they might finally be motivated to innovate and bring those numbers down. In my opinion, without such accountability, these companies are likely to prioritize the interests of their shareholders over the quality and impact of their services. I am determined to get to the bottom of this issue, and I will continue investigating until I get the answers I need. If you work in the postal industry and have valuable insights, please feel free to drop me a line. And to my friends at the UPU, if you feel I've been way off the mark here, you're more than welcome to reach out and set the record straight. If I've been chasing rainbows for the past 6 months, I'll be the first to admit it. And lastly, I'd like to thank DHL for their transparency. Although I've been critical of them in this video, a lot of the issues I experienced clearly aren't exclusive to DHL. Of the 3 postal services I reached out to, they were by far the most forthcoming and transparent, and I think that says a lot about a company. I've shared this video with DHL prior to release in case they wish to offer a final comment, and here's their response. Through regular quality measurements, the International Postal Corporation confirms that Deutsche Post DHL is one of the best postal companies in the world. Among other reasons, this is due to our innovative strength. We regularly pilot and test technical innovations and use them where they bring concrete advantages and logistical optimizations for our customers and operations. In order to achieve the best results, we rely on the best possible combination of technology and the expertise of our employees. Thanks for watching and happy holidays.